Hello and welcome to Some of My Friends Read Comics. We've got Vince.
Hey, it looks like it's the Just Us League today.
Great. We've got Chris.
Shazam, 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 Shazam.
Great. And
you didn't say the magic word.
Oh my god. All right. Well, hi, I'm Kia. Welcome to the show. We're talking about some Justice League stuff today because the movie's coming out. Specifically Kingdom Come, which is a little mini-series from the mid-90s, like a future Justice League kind of story. We'll get into all that, but we've got some comic book news to talk about too. We don't usually do like a news segment, but for whatever reason, we felt the itch to talk about it.
And that news ticker that we've got in the part of our studio that we never use.
Yeah, I just got a hot fax in about one of the big Marvel writers, Brian Michael Bendis, probably most famous for creating Jessica Jones.
Ultimate Spider-Man.
Miles Morales,
basically the Marvel Universe as you know it right now.
Yeah, pretty much. He really kind of reinvigorated Marvel in the early 2000s, late 90s, that era, I guess. And he just signed an exclusive deal with DC, which is it's pretty big. That's a major thing to happen. And I know a lot of people. Chris specifically aren't big on Bendis's writing, especially his more recent stuff. And I get that his writing, certainly a little quippy, tends to not write characters with a lot of different voices. But I am kind of excited to see what he does at DC. I don't know if he can reinvigorate them, give them something to work with. I don't know. Give me your thoughts, guys.
I'll start. So Bendis is one of the key reasons I got into comics. Brian K. Vaughan being first. Kia, I think I just started torrenting comics, and you were like, "You need to get Y: The Last Man right now." And then immediately you gave me a stack of Bendis books. I think you gave me Powers and Ultimate Spider-Man, and he didn't write Ultimate X-Men at first. But so I was reading his stuff, and then I read Daredevil, and I read everything Bendis had written. Up to 2004, pretty quick succession. Mm-hmm. And I really enjoyed his work, and then I didn't. I don't know what to think of this. I haven't read a Bendis comic in a decade, mostly aside from Miles Morales books, mostly because I just didn't like what he was writing. A lot of his quirks were kind of coming through in his shorthand, and it just wasn't resonating with me.
Sure.
But so I don't know what to think about this. I can't think of this in the context of is this a 20 if this was a 20-year-old Marvel veteran Chris Claremont or somebody going to DC, or somebody that I would associate with, or Geoff Johns suddenly packing up and leaving to Marvel. What would that do? And would I even care at this point? I don't know if I'm going to follow anything that Bendis would write or be interested in anything that he would write. But I also understand, he's been at the same company for 20 years, and he wants to spread his wings. He's probably done as much as he can do at Marvel, or maybe he just got a lot of money. I have no idea what he's going to go over to. Maybe he's over there to go help with their film division, the way he was a consultant with the MCU, him and Matt Fraction. Where I have no idea. I haven't read many articles about it yet.
Yeah, I think what he writes is definitely going to be a big factor, because I know. Especially with him, his solo books I always tended to enjoy more than his sort of team stuff. There's just something about his writing style that fits a more focused storyline a little bit better. Chris, let's hear from you.
Sure. Well, the joke I already made earlier today on Facebook, which I'll share now for our listeners.
Please do.
Is I guess the question is, what Kitty Pryde or Spider-Woman equivalent will Brian Michael Bendis bring to DC? And so that, Spider-Woman was on every Avengers team. Jessica Drew became Jessica Jones. They just wouldn't let him tell a mind control rape type story with Jessica Drew. So he's like, well, I'll make my own, which we've talked about. But so the question is, and then Kitty Pryde with the X-Men and with Ultimate X-Men, and didn't she join an Avengers team? I don't follow his work.
Oh, I don't know.
So. But anyway, the question is who it will be now. It'll obviously be someone from when he was 16. So, that would place it in, I guess, the early 80s. So, there's, I guess, Deanna Troi, Wonder Girl,
Oh,
from
shit.
the new Teen Titans, or of course Raven from the new Teen Titans. There's also Huntress, who is Bruce Wayne's daughter from an alternate world, which is a whole bunch of backstory that
Is
Bendis.
that who Huntress is? I had no idea.
Well, that's the '80s Huntress.
Okay. Not
Then
the modern.
in the '90s, it was the mafia, descendant or whatever, who then fights the mafia.
Okay.
So.
Okay.
I'm sure Bendis, with his knowledge and respect for continuity, would never confuse which one is which.
Those characters do seem right up his alley, though. I think.
Yeah. I'm not. I very much did enjoy a lot of Bendis writing. But I was thinking, like, well, he seems like a Marvel guy. Like, he probably doesn't have much experience with, like, the DC characters, like how Mark Waid or Kurt Busiek would. And then I'm like, that has never stopped Bendis. So I think,
I do always prefer his stuff when he is building his own sort of original mythology around something. And so, like, it's easy to do that with a less popular character, I think.
But I will say, I mean, as far as just creatively, like, I really hope. I mean, like, there's no reason Bendis can't write a good, like, Batman book, that's clearly like in his wheelhouse. He could write a really interesting, Batman family type, thing that involved Batman and maybe one or two kind of supporting characters. Any more than that, and I think we've seen he can't do that many different types of characters, which is weird because, like, the DC universe is. I mean, there's not that many different character types, but it's like they're very broad characters.
I'd like to see him more like on a Tim Drake than Batman, though.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking, is that he would be great. I mean, I don't even know what the status of, like, Stephanie Brown is anymore.
Oh yeah,
but, like, that would be a great kind of character to, like, do like a Batgirl or Stephanie Brown or something like that, and then just to do like 1 or 2 books at most a month, because, like, when he's doing 3 books a month, he has Norman Osborn just show up every year with a Dark Avengers team. And it's like, Brian, we read this book already. Like, you already did this.
Yeah, Chris, I think me and you were at a comic store in town once, and I flipped open some Bendis book. I think it was maybe Spider-Man 2 or something. And I looked, and it was just like the way that the narration panels were, and I'm like, yep, this is a Bendis book. It was like, what happened? What actually happened? And I was like, this would have been hilarious to me 10 years ago, but now it seems a little old hat. But
yeah, it's just, I mean, he's really, I think he was stretched too thin. And I also think, like, I don't know if it's just kind of like stagnation or what it is, but it's like there's a way to do a 6-part story where every part is engaging. And I feel like Brian Michael Bendis has forgotten how to do that. Like, he tells a great part 1 and a good part 2, and then it's like, well, you can just skip to the end now.
Yeah, I wonder how much of that's editing and how much of that's, like, I feel like a lot of first issues are really good and the second issues just fall apart. And the same thing happens in TV too.
It's because it's the strength is the pitch,
Yeah.
You're like, this is the story and it's going to be awesome. And then it's like, well, you're 2 parts into the story, and it's like, well, you're kind of like, where you're going, but it's not as tight. You're just kind of like, well, I'll figure it out.
Yeah.
And then you get stories that just tread water for 3 parts, and it's like, well, then I'm just bored by the end. And then half the time, the last part sucks too. So,
I guess time will tell. We'll have to wait and see what he ends up writing. But I mean, maybe it'll be our most modern comic that we do. For science, we'll read it for the show once the first arc is done or something, and we'll talk about it. Maybe we'll just talk about it as it's coming out. Who knows? We'll see.
Yeah, like I said, I mean, I hope it's good. I have no interest in shitty comics.
Yeah. Speaking of switching from Marvel to DC, we don't do much DC on the show, but like I said, Justice League's coming out soon. We really did want to do some more Justice League, but we haven't really had the best experience reading Justice League comics, so we figured we'd go with Kingdom Come, which was a pretty big DC miniseries from the mid '90s. I remember this was all over the place. Really got a lot of buzz because Alex Ross was the artist. He is you've probably seen his work if you've ever been in a comic shop ever. He does that beautiful painted stuff. his
I feel like Kingdom Come was like a perennial like Barnes and Noble Borders type book also.
yeah,
Like
like you saw
it's
this thing everywhere.
because
Yeah.
it's like this is like Norman Rockwell like painted art, and specifically Kingdom
Hmm.
Come is like this is a whole fucking comic book of like Superman like looking thick and like got gray hair. It's like a really cool like art design. Like it's very eye popping against all the other comic books that
And
you've ever
Exactly.
seen.
you spell thick with 2 or 3 C's, right?
Yeah,
Vince?
at least.
So so Alex Ross did the art, and like he mostly, I don't know how many like internal pages he had done before this, but he's mostly a cover artist kind of guy. So the fact that he was even doing a full series was just huge as well.
Yeah,
Well,
like
he did Marvels 2 years earlier,
That's right,
and
he did
that's all
Marvel
his
before.
interior art, and then he did covers for Kurt Busiek for Astro City,
yeah.
and then I feel like he took like a year to get this in the can because then this didn't come out until '96.
Yeah, and then like after this I don't know if did he do any interiors after this? Like he did that US book that I bought that never read, like an Uncle Sam type book. I don't know if he's done any interiors entirely. He did the Justice series that was like 13 issues that I want to say he didn't pencil, he just painted somebody else's pencils.
And,
that
he
came-
did all the Earth X, Universe X covers for like
Right.
5 or 6
Yeah,
years.
lots of covers. I'm looking at, online. There's a few little things he's done here and there of interior work, but it's a super short list. Oh my God. In 1990, he did 5 issues of a Terminator miniseries.
Fuck yeah, let's read that.
We gotta read
Wow.
that.
That sounds cool. Well, we should also mention, and I guess that's behind the scenes. He's not credited as the writer for this. This is his baby. Like this is his idea. They hired a different writer who I don't think we've ever done any of his stuff, but James Robinson was
Starman.
brought in, from Starman to be the writer. And then basically couldn't work with Alex Ross. I mean, I guess they just, didn't get along or whatever happened. And he was taken off the project, and then Mark Waid was given it. So it's definitely like this is Alex Ross's thing. And I think it kind of comes through a little bit. We'll talk about it. But
Sure as shit doesn't feel like a Mark Waid book.
It
no,
really
not like
doesn't,
there's
yeah,
a few
'cause-
moments that do, but yeah, overall
Right.
I'd say it doesn't.
Yeah, I'm a big fan of Mark Waid's writing. What did we do on the show? His
We did Ruse, and we did his Flash.
That's right. That's
Return of
right.
Barry Allen. And have you ever read his massive treatise on Birthright? Or not? He wrote Birthright, Superman Birthright, and his massive treatise on Man of Steel and how much he hated the movie, which doesn't seem to
Wow.
match up with how Superman's depicted in this book.
Yeah. I was expecting this to be better. I don't want to hate on it too much, but it didn't feel like a Mark Waid book at all. It was just very, we'll get into that later. But let's get into the actual story of what this whole thing is about. It takes place in the future. I don't remember if they say exactly when, but I guess maybe 20, 30 years. Lex Luthor and Batman are, they're still alive. They're old men. But there's a whole new generation of heroes that showed up, and they're a little bit more rash. They're willing to sort of kill. And
It's very much 90s superheroes.
yes,
Um,
yes.
With a lot
And
of
the
like,
line,
It's it's not subtle at all. It's like this is
really
like baby's first deconstruction, where it's like please get what we're referencing. If we draw this guy to look like Cable with a silly hat, he should have had Wolverine claws though.
my question
that-
is does
Right.
this book take place in the Watchmen universe? Because
No,
there's a
I
lot
don't
of copies of Under the Hood in bookstores.
You're gonna give Geoff Johns ideas, Vince.
I'm not.
The
yeah.
very beginning, it has a lot of Watchmen things. It has Under the Hood and the other person's book in a store shelf, which I think is an Easter egg, but also maybe is the true future of the DC universe. They've been building to Kingdom Come the whole time. What?
All right.
Well, we also
Let's-
see
let's-
Captain Atom, who is Dr. Manhattan's equivalent, which I guess hasn't stopped DC before.
We can't get into guys. We can't get into Easter eggs before we've even told people what the story is. All right.
What story? Boom.
What? So all right. So it's the line between hero and villain has been blurred, and for whatever reason, these heroes are all just fighting each other. it's not really very well explained. They do kind of explain that, because of this one particular hero. What's his name?
Magog.
Magog, is that it? Yeah. He kills the Joker, and Superman's like, "Oh, everybody likes him more now. All right, I quit. I'm done." And
well, it makes Superman look like an idiot too, because it's like the Joker had just gotten finished murdering Jimmy Olsen and all this other stuff, and then Superman like wags his finger when Magog just murders the Joker.
Yeah, it's really weird. It feels underexplained. And by the way, all of this is kind of told in flashback as well. The majority of this series is kind of told in flashback, like explaining how we got to different points. And so the whole thing feels like recap. It feels like I'm reading a 200-page recap. I don't know if you guys felt this at all.
That's I get, you're wanting to brush through a lot, but the framing device of this book is the Spectre talking to a preacher named Norman McKay. Norman McKay, named after Norman Rockwell, and Winsor McKay, the father of animation.
I missed that.
So that was like, this is heavy-handed, but
it'd have been Walt Eisner.
Yeah, but Jesus,
Stan Kirby.
But the framing device is him talking to this is the Spectre talking to this old man while narrating the story, and I'm thinking the whole time, at least through the first issue, I'm like, you're wasting a lot of fucking nice art, painted panels on just an old man looking aghast. Like, I want to see like Superman flying and looking majestic and doing all these other and there's some great art design like in this book, but then there's like a lot of wasted panels that I'm like, I don't need to see this. Like, if you're gonna spend the time drawing and doing this exquisite painting with shading, don't fucking waste it on this old man just looking like, oh my gosh, it's boring.
And the storytelling is very strange. And I mean, yes, I guess the more fundamental problem is that it doesn't make any sense. That Superman's just been gone for 10 years. It's totally just a plot device to take him off the table for the world to get worse, which Supreme did. I mean, I know it's not fair because Alan Moore, might be a little better at these kinds of stories, but Supreme did a much better job of being like, oh, he's off Earth, or like, this is a new version of Supreme. So it's not like you can't, it creates a new status quo. Whereas this book, it's just like, well, Superman's been gone for a long time, just hanging out in Kansas because it got exploded recently.
Yeah. I mean, it's not like a story about like Superman at his lowest point rising up to like even make that make sense, Like, he just shows up and he's like, I've been gone for 10 years, time to be a fascist.
I'm back now. So, and I'm not given, we don't really get a main character to latch onto. I thought it was going to be that old man, but again, he's just like this narrator watching everything. Well, and so we're not given a reason to care about him.
And he basically hates all the youth. So it's like an old man yells at cloud with like a deep undercurrent of hating immigrants. And I'm like, is this my hero? Like, my notes are like, is this my hero? Because all he does is like talk about like, I yearn for the glory days, like back when white people ruled and not all these crazy gangsters. I'm like,
right. I mean, I think we're supposed to be like, oh, like it's because back then it's like it was aspirational somehow, and now it's not. Now it's a superhero welfare state. But that's really, it's like, okay, I don't know. Like, there's a lot of unfortunate, side effects to reading this in 2017, where it's like Alex Ross's politics are stupid.
Right. Well, we got to let the humans triumph for those darn metahumans, like changing our world. I'm like, there's some
speaking of that,
which relies on just a huge misunderstanding of Superman's character. Like, I feel like Superman is written wrongly, like 95% of this book, and at the very end, they kind of salvage it.
Yeah,
they do. I love the end was my favorite. We'll get to that later, but there's like a few scenes where, like Wonder Woman and Superman are just hanging out talking, and those are like some of my favorites, where they feel like very genuine human things, just kind of talking through their thoughts. And we get so little of that throughout the rest of the book, but those moments were like, I really enjoyed those. I wish there had been more of those.
Yeah, because I think issue 1 doesn't let you into the Superman or Wonder Woman's POV at all.
At all, at
I think
all.
it's like recap of establishing the world. And these are like 48-page issues, so they're a bit long. But then the moments of like Superman and Wonder Woman are nice, and every time Batman's on screen, I love it. I really
Well, of
like
course. I mean, old with a neck brace.
old man Batman with a neck brace and a 3-piece
Yeah.
suit is fucking awesome. It's
great.
so
It's
it's
great.
such good design. It's great. I love it.
His little like cybernetic outfit.
I love it. I'm just like, yes,
Um,
show me more Batman
and
with his comb over. Yeah.
And like Alex Ross just designed so many crazy characters that are just flying around doing whatever, and none of them are important. Like this book just does not care about any of them. It's just like, hey, look at all these crazy things. We'll maybe name a couple of them, but
Yeah, like Green Lantern doesn't have any lines. It's like
at all, yeah.
Green Lantern with his space prison watches for extraterrestrials, and it's like it's a neat design and everything, but it's like, and first of all, I don't even know, is this Hal Jordan? I don't even know.
It's unimportant. I mean, but at the same time, I'm like, I want to see like the whole Justice League like interacting and talking about being old, and that's bringing my own stuff to the table of like these are the stories I would want to hear in this world, not the story I
Right.
was given,
Well,
which is unfair criticism.
We get so it doesn't feel like a book that's set in the future. It feels like a book where, like you said, this plot device has happened where Superman is gone and now he's coming back, and that's it. It doesn't feel like this thing is really set far in the future, except for the fact that they look a little bit old. That's kind of it.
Well,
And
but
there's bad metahumans, I guess.
well,
Right, I
and
guess.
there's stuff like Planet Hollywood, but it's Planet Krypton.
I did like that.
I did
thought
like
that
that.
was a beautiful touch where it's like, okay, superheroes have been around for so long, they're just part of the pop culture now, and so it's like a restaurant where all the waiters are dressed up like superheroes, and like there's kitschy names and all that sort of stuff. Like that's fun.
Well, and
I wanted more of that.
I liked
I
that.
saw that made I forget which DC animated movie in 2017. Bruce Timm made like a restaurant type Kingdom Come reference where like Harley Quinn works at like it's like that, but it's all like, bikini versions of like Supergirl costumes. It's like, okay, Bruce Timm, okay.
Yeah.
Is that the one where Harley Quinn has 2 butts?
Yes, that's
Okay.
that.
All right.
She's bending over and she's got a visible like crack. Then she's got another one.
It's weird, Kia.
All right. I don't think I need to
but
see
I do
it.
like
What were you
that. But I also like that. Like it's a world where kids they don't remember facts necessarily, so things get confusing. Like one guy's he's a waiter and he's either Green Arrow or Green Lantern, but he can't keep his facts straight.
Yeah, he
over
doesn't
which one he
remember,
is.
yeah.
Which is like one of my great Futurama jokes is in the future they confuse Henry Ford. They say that Gerald Ford invented the automobile, and I really
Yeah.
like things like that. I'm like, oh yeah, I'd fucking get that confused if I was a student, 50 years later. So I like that as kind of like touches. I think that's
Yeah,
really
it's like these moments, the very human moments in this book are really, really nice.
I do. Also,
I wish we had it like a Lois Lane, or I mean, honestly, any female character that we could like latch onto at like a human level and kind of get in the heads of the characters. Because
Yeah.
I mean, Wonder Woman talks. That's the one.
That's literally it, though. Yeah.
and I do.
Like
We also have-
Power Girl is there. They call her Power Woman now, I guess.
Yeah.
She hasn't
She might
changed her
have one
costume though.
line.
She hasn't changed her costume though.
No, of course not. But I think she has one line. She like yells at the old man once.
Most of the details in this book are just very surface level, where it's just like, okay, here's a detail, and it doesn't really necessarily connect to anything. It's not important, and all right, now we're gonna get back to the main story, which again is like not particularly fleshed out. I guess there's villains. Magog, he's not really a villain. He's just kind of like a hero who disagrees with the other heroes. You do have Lex Luthor. He's formed his Mankind Liberation Front, MLF, aka MILF. He is like has brainwashed Captain Marvel, aka Shazam, that guy, and like that guy's working for him, and then Batman starts working with him all of a sudden. You're like, what's going on here? Why is Batman working with Lex Luthor? Like anti-fascist.
Because Superman's just showing up and he's being like,
Yeah.
we need all you superheroes. I'm either going to murder you, throw you in prison, or you're going to act with respect as a superhero. And it's like, according to your laws, old man, okay. Like it felt like I'm like, this Superman is a fucking fascist. Like here, like I'm not a big fan of that. So I'm like, yeah, Batman and Lex Luthor are gonna have to team up to save the day. And then I don't understand what's going on with Shazam, and maybe I just don't give a shit about Shazam's character. But the fact that like this entire plot like hinges on him, like I don't fucking care.
Does.
I don't fucking care.
It's a little unexplained. Like, how did Lex Luthor gain control over him?
I don't know enough about Shazam either.
And why is he so important? Why is it like, oh, he got control of Shazam, it's over, Lex Luthor wins, you know?
I like that it doesn't even bother to explain to you. Like, if you, I mean, because I don't read a lot of Captain Marvel comics, but I know that, you know, Billy Batson's the kid,
right,
and that there's a big twist of like, that's not Captain Marvel, that's Billy Batson.
Because Billy Batson grew up and looks just like what Captain Marvel did when he turned into him or something, right?
Yes. Right. And so that's the
big
twist that Batman discovers. Yes.
And but he does have powers later.
Yes.
And I don't know. I just don't know.
And he's being controlled. Who's even doing it? Like Lex brags about, is it Vandal Savage or one of his other villains has like earworms that he's like putting in Shazam so that he'll like magically be, I guess, have mental problems.
I don't know. It happens all in the span of a page, and Batman punches somebody in the face because he figures it out faster than the audience does.
And that fixes it. Yeah, this simultaneously has too many characters and not enough characters.
Right. Well, I mean, it's. I don't think it's very well done in the way that. So, like Lex Luthor, okay, great. It's like, but who's bouncing off Lex Luthor? You've got the Riddler for one scene, who it's like, first of all, he shouldn't even be there. Like, it's ridiculous.
And then Catwoman for whatever reason.
Yeah, and then Catwoman, which makes no sense. And then Vandal Savage, who they don't even explain who that is, where I'm thinking most like casual readers are like, who the hell's this guy?
Yeah, I think this book depends on you having like a casual understanding of every superhero and then throws you for a loop where you have to have like a deep understanding of a few characters, like periphery characters. Like, it's like, I understand who Superman and Batman are. I get them pretty quickly. I can know who Lex Luthor is. I get Wonder Woman, but I'm like, and it's fine because like Green Lantern doesn't talk. You're like, okay, cool. Like, he's just a dude in the background. That's nice. But then it like hinges on that and Vandal Savage. But there's like 3 or 4 Doctor characters in the DC universe that all blend in my head. Because Vandal Savage is not the same as Doc Savage. And there's another Doctor that does something, but that may be a Marvel character that looks like one of them. Doc Samson?
Those sorts of...
That's a different one, yes. Yeah. And also, where is Gorilla Grodd is my question. Like, I think I deserve a like fully like Harambe looking painted Alex Ross.
Oh shit! I would love a poster of that.
Wasn't there? I think one of the big scenes did have a nice, or maybe that was like a wolf character. I know there was an animal character, or like a panther. There's a Black Panther. It's not Black Panther. Who is this?
There is like a tiger person, or a panther person, or whatever.
I don't know.
A panther person, a werepanther.
Werepanther.
Look, I'm not judging. However they want to, whatever they want to be called.
So Batman figures out exactly what's going on. Like, turns on Lex Luthor and saves the day. And that's kind of it. It's all a little underwhelming. I barely knew what. So they try to murder all the superheroes. Like, all the superheroes are fighting each other in the middle of some field or whatever. And
Superman builds what they literally just call a gulag in like the Kansas wasteland.
Right.
And then all the heroes are like rioting because they hate it. Because Superman's like. Yeah, it's
you're
like
right.
Civil
Definitely
War.
got notes of war. Yeah,
it's really. It emphasizes how lazy Mark Millar is as a writer. But
I still thought Civil War was way better than this. I know you don't like Civil War, but
I'll tip my hat. Yeah, Civil War is better than this, and I didn't like Civil War.
Yeah, but it's still. It's still relying on like a super genius being an idiot, much like this book.
So. So the UN votes to just bomb the superheroes before they take over, and humans are extinct, and so Superman finally convinces Captain Marvel to go against his programming or whatever, and so Captain Marvel sacrifices himself, but a bunch of heroes still die. Superman's mad, and he like goes to the UN, and he's like, "I'm gonna fuck shit up. I'm so mad at you." Blah, 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 blah. And then this old Norman Rockwell guy, Norman McKay guy, he's like, "Oh, this is why they don't like you. They're scared of you." And Superman goes, "Oh," and everything's okay.
Right. It's like you became too much about the super, not enough about the man.
Oh,
That's a great line until you scratch the surface and like that doesn't make any fucking sense.
So there is a nice little epilogue, which was my favorite. Apparently, this wasn't actually like in the original
best part of the book.
It wasn't even in the original issues. It's only in the collected edition. But there's a scene that takes place
Which
1
makes
year
me
later.
think Mark Waid actually like had more input to it.
Yes, I think he did this like on his own. Yeah, where Clark and Diana, Wonder Woman and Superman, they're hanging out at that restaurant with Batman, and they're announcing that she's having a baby, and they want Bruce to be the godfather, and it's just like this very sweet. See, honestly, if this had been the beginning of Kingdom Come, this scene right here, I think this would have been a way better book. Like, just start here and continue off of this point, because
I totally agree. Like I really liked this scene, and I was like, if this was like the first, and then because you could do like, I mean, I know like it would be a very different story, and again, I'm just giving Geoff Johns ideas, but like if you had like the like super kid like Superboy stories of like Superman getting in trouble because he's like 5 years old or whatever. Mm-hmm. If you had like this Wonder Woman and Superman's daughter who's like learning about the world, and then it would be a fun way to like reintroduce like this is the DC universe of today, like here's the League of Shadows or whatever, and now they're actually good, but here you have to help them, Superman's daughter. Like that would be something where you'd be like, oh, that's cool. Like they're new situations and like new characters who but then in a way you're introducing them in a way that's new. Like that's to me, I think cooler than, I mean, this is just a big fight, like and it's a bunch of your old favorites who are like the main fighters, and then you've got like 30 people who you're like, who's that guy?
Yeah, I also like. I know this. You were mentioning Vince was like big for like the Barnes and Nobles, Borders, like the bookstore market. I don't understand how somebody who wasn't like into comics could step into this book, because it is so steeped with just like random little bits of nothing that are simultaneously not important, but just like fill this book so much that you kind of it's easy to get lost in all of it.
I think like. This was something that I bought very early in my comic buying, and I couldn't read it the first time because it's just impenetrable. Like I think, the art is really cool, and like you flip through, you're like, oh, this is nice, it's really pretty. I had friends though, like that would just read it in Barnes and Noble and not buy it, but I don't, I don't think you could get anything out of this book. But at the same time, like if you are a big comic reader, like all these characters are miswritten. That. Not all of them. Superman is.
Oh, I was gonna say Batman's good.
Yeah, Batman's great.
Yeah.
Aside from the fact that Batman, like a garbage rich person, orders his steak well done, and then gets really mad.
True. That is stupid.
Yeah, it doesn't seem like Batman at all. He knows better than that.
Also, I don't even think Batman would be like a steak guy. I don't know. Maybe I'm wrong.
He drinks yerba mate canonically.
What?
He drinks yerba mate canonically after a fight. So like I think that like Batman would have like very clean eating. Like he would not be eating steak.
Yeah, exactly.
He'd be eating a lot of cod like The Rock does. He basically has The Rock's
Yeah, exactly.
I'm glad you mentioned that. Like as soon as he said steak, I was like, what? I don't know about that.
You're gonna have a heart attack, Batman.
Yeah, like coffee and steak all like that doesn't seem right. Right.
But yeah, like
he might as well just start smoking a cigarette at this point. Like he's just like your dad, okay? He's your dad.
Oh man.
But the thing is like what sticks through my head is Mark Waid wrote this huge treatise on how the Man of Steel movie misrepresented Superman and how he like killed people and did all these things. And I'm like, this is just in my head the whole time. I'm like, This is everything that's fucking wrong with Superman's character is depicted. Like Mark Waid talks about in this essay from like 2013. Wait, Mark Waid wrote this. Like, what the fuck is going on here? Like, and so my only explanation is that he didn't write this. Alex Ross wrote this, and then Mark
Yeah,
Waid
I think it
put
was
some
mostly
words.
Alex Ross. Yeah.
Right, and then he like did the dialogue and whatever else, and then
Called
it was
it a
mostly
day.
Alex Ross. I do think, I mean, if we're talking about like why this is popular, even though it's kind of impenetrable, I do think it's good in that it is so obvious in its like its themes and its thesis, of like, oh, there's a lot of dark and gritty comics out there on the shelves. It's a real shame. And then it's very, and I don't use this word lightly. I hate, in fact, that it's used wrong so much. It's pretentious in the sense that it feels like it's really smart, but it's really not. Like you're like, ooh, like this is really saying something about, like the virtues of fascism versus, it's like, no, it's not. Like it's stupid.
It just kind of just doesn't earn anything that it's trying to do, I think. Yeah. It's unfortunate.
I mean, on the one hand, it's like it feels kind of padded, but on the other, it's like if it was, 6 issues, you'd be like, well, maybe it has time to like get Superman from point A to point B, where he's like, well, we have to build this thing, and we got to do this. But the way it is, it's like between issues, he's like, well, here it is. I built my new super prison.
Yep. Here's what happened between the issues.
Which they should have called it a super prison or a super max. Because he's Superman, and he should just throw super in front of everything he does. Like,
don't call it a gulag. Like that just doesn't make any sense. All right.
And he should make Crypto the super dog like his warden or something. And now you've got something.
Then you've got something. Yep. Crypto, who has morphed into a human form over time. The kryptonite has. I don't know. So
you lost.
Before we finish on this, I did kind of want to compare it to some other projects that were kind of sandwiched around this. We already mentioned Marvels, which was in 1994, 2 years before this, which Alex Ross also did the art for, and it was also a 4-issue miniseries. So it's hard not to compare it, except that was taking a look back into the past of the Marvel universe and sort of seeing how it developed through the ages. And we also get like an old man main character there, except he is like our man on the ground. We're seeing everything through his eyes, and we are able to relate to him.
Right, and we see him grow. He doesn't. Issue 1, he's like a 20-year-old like beat reporter.
Yes, and by the end, he's an old man. Yeah, which I couldn't not think about it again because it's Alex Ross, and we had an old man protagonist, and it's like, oh gosh, why? I wish this was more like that. And then Earth X came out in 1999, which just had Alex Ross covers, but it was Marvel's Future series, which was 12 issues, and it was very different from this. It was in a world. Did you guys read Earth X at all?
I don't remember Earth X that well. I know I did. I definitely remember reading Universe X and even I think Paradise X.
Paradise X. I don't think I read. I only read the first one.
Yeah, I think I read Earth X. I don't have like strong memories of it, but all of that stuff kind of blends together. It's interesting. There's a lot of I do like, and again, like that book has. I think it has some issues, but it has it because those are like 12 issue like maxi series type things. There's a lot of room to like breathe in like the weirder corners of like the the universe where they can be like, oh, and this is what happened to this guy. Like it's pretty crazy what happened, and then like introduce who that is and like give you some context to it so you actually care somewhat when it's like then at the end they bring them back and here they are. I mean, like they had. I remember in I think Universe X, in that world, Spider Girl, Peter Parker's daughter, has bonded with I think the Carnage symbiote, and they don't explain it when you first see it. You're just like, what the hell is that? You just see like kind of Carnage with boobs, and they're like helping people. You're like, okay, and then later they explain like what happened, and you're like, oh, okay. So it actually took the time to explain what the weird new situation was instead of just having like a sketchbook full of crazy designs and then kind of populating them in the back of scenes and not explaining who they are.
Right. I did like how so much had changed for a lot of the characters, so everything felt very different for Earth X, and I was again expecting more of that to bring it back to Kingdom Come. I was expecting the characters to have changed kind of drastically because it was again Alex Ross design from the same era, and it was like all the characters, like Superman is still just Superman, Wonder Woman's still Wonder Woman. Everyone was still the same, but just looking slightly different, slightly older. And there was very little that it felt like it had genuinely changed for the. Again, it didn't feel like a future book.
Yeah,
I don't know.
Wonder Woman
I don't
puts
know.
on her super armor at the end or whatever, but like I don't know, that was dumb. And then
I thought it was Hawk Girl for the longest time, because it looked just like a Hawk Girl armor.
Yeah. But I also think like Marvel's. I mean, I know we're not here to review Marvel's, but Marvel's to me works so well because, I mean, even if it's not like the greatest character, but like you actually care about that guy, and it's very exposition heavy, almost to a fault. I mean, again, it's Kurt Busiek in the mid '90s, so like you're going to get more more.
Yeah, it's a very
narration box.
reminiscent book. So it's like this thing and then that thing. Oh.
But at the same time, like it's nice. I mean, because it explains stuff like he's like, oh, I was so afraid of mutants, and then like his daughter meets a mutant, and he's like, oh, I'm shitty, like it's. It's cool to have kind of stuff like that. And then I mean it is an Easter egg, but I do feel like it's a much more like cynical and kind of funny take in Marvel's where he's like, oh, like I'm done with all the superhero stuff. Just take a photo of me and the Paperboy. And then the Paperboy is the next Ghost Rider.
No, I don't remember that. Oh man.
Where it's
That's
just
great.
an Easter egg where like it doesn't matter at all, but it's like reading it, I was just like, oh, like he's just stuck in a world where like stupid shit's just gonna keep happening.
That's funny.
Where even if he wants to be like, I'm just gonna have a normal life, like you just can't in the Marvel universe, which to me is a lot like I don't know, like the Spectre just being like you have to choose like how you will help people, and then it's very unclear like what the Spectre actually does. And I mean, we've seen. Did we do Swamp Thing for this? I don't even remember.
Yeah, we did some Swamp Thing.
But like, so we've seen the Spectre like appear in other books and be like kind of this type of character, and like, what's this adding really? Like, I don't know.
Yeah.
Like, I feel like you can do it, but show me something new.
I will say I was really excited to see the Spectre in this. There was a Spectre series in the mid 2000s that I really liked. I think David Lapham wrote it, and it was really cool. I don't remember it at all, but it was really cool. Maybe one day we'll do that for the show.
I do love. There are some really great moments, and that's probably the other reason that people just thumbing through it at a Borders enjoy this is like there's an image of like the Spectre where he's like 200 feet tall. That's awesome. There's a like when Shazam is standing there like in his Captain Marvel costume, even if you don't even know who that is, you're like, oh shit, like it's about to go down because he's just like standing there. And it's a very iconic pose. I mean, I think we've seen posters of it for like 20 years now, but it's just cool, like, and the designs of some of the characters are so good that it's like, yeah, this is all, I mean, I see why he does covers.
The one where when Batman shows up is also really cool. Like at the end, like in issue 3 or 4, you're like, yeah, this is fucking awesome. Although the pages before that is just like splashes of green. I'm like, I have no idea who's fighting here. It's just 3 pages of this. Like I think his sequential art maybe is not as strong as like big set piece images splashes.
You know what I've realized? This thing would have worked instead of a 4-issue of 48 pages each. This should have been a 48-issue series of 4 pages each, where you read it like in little tiny. I think that's what his art is meant to do. You read it in little tiny bits. Dude, you don't change any of it. You just cut it up into little chunks because again, it has that recappy feel. And it's like, okay, this is what I'm reading about this time. This is what I'm reading about this time. And his art, like, it takes a while for him to do it. I think reading this thing in literal, like, tinier little chunks, I would have probably enjoyed it more. Just big sweeping images, very cliffhangery, like, yeah, I'm not going to try it like that, but
yeah, it's
maybe if you ever do decide to read Kingdom Come, read it in tiny chunks. Try that.
It's interesting because I do think it's a good example of, kind of, getting promoted out of your skill set, because like Alex Ross is such a good artist, but then like once he starts doing like, oh, like I'm also going to script like Project Superpowers X or whatever it is, it's like, no thank you. Like I don't think as a writer he's very good.
Yeah.
And so
Okay.
and even like I think he needs somebody to kind of rein in, or kind of, I mean, I collaborate, I guess would be the better way than rein in with him a little more, where I feel like this is him kind of running amok a little bit.
Yeah. So, anything else to say about Kingdom Come here?
These characters do show up in other DC continuity, specifically around Magog, and wanting to prevent a similar future. So he showed up in Geoff Johns' Justice Society of America in the mid-2000s. This Superman appeared in several issues, a few arcs, to stop our universe's... this is Earth 22, I believe, is what Kingdom Come is. So they wanted to stop Magog from doing a similar event here. And then Justice League Generation Lost, which was a every other week series right before the New 52. Maxwell Lord was trying to prevent Magog again, and they, I believe, used images straight from Kingdom Come in that book. So,
All right.
so
Yeah,
DC,
I guess that's probably. I guess that's probably why when I was on the Wikipedia page, I saw Magog was on the like top 100 villains of DC, and I'm like, why? He's not even the villain of this.
Yeah.
Oh man. So speaking of Geoff Johns, he we haven't read anything of his for the show. He tends to get a little bit of a rap for being the type of guy who is a little fan servicey, kind of likes to just
fan servicey
write
and
stuff that
rapey.
you've already. And oof, yeah.
Well,
Write
and
stuff
you
that
he
already
loves
like.
Alex Ross's like the good old days were the best days.
So we didn't feel like we got our DC love in. We do want to read something that we kind of like, especially for Justice League coming out. So we're gonna read another one. We're gonna read The Flash. But man, we're gonna read some Geoff Johns. I don't know. It's supposedly one of his best little Flash stories.
So this is the story that I've always heard, like, because Geoff Johns, got very big into DC after his Flash run. And so this was what we're talking about. His Flash run was supposed to be like really good. Like people like heralded this, like, this is great comics. This is really great comics. And it's spoken of the same way that like Mark Waid's Flash is. And I really liked Mark Waid's Flash. So,
yeah.
So we're reading The Flash Iron Heights, which is supposed to be the pinnacle of his run. It's a one-shot 48-pager. So I'm optimistic. It's Ethan Van Sciver before they did Green Lantern Rebirth and The Flash Rebirth, and
and he's a good artist. I like Ethan.
Yeah,
we're on first name basis apparently.
we're on a last name basis. I call him Van Sciver. I don't.
All right.
Van Johns and Bendis. We don't use our first names. Keep them at a distance.
That's true. This was from the early 2000 or early August 01.
Right before 9/11.
One shot. Oh boy. All right. Let's not. Yeah. But we haven't really done many one shots like this. It'll be maybe a short little episode. That's okay. Holidays are coming up. Boy, I need some time away from reading comics. It's busy life of reading comics. Oof, gets to you. So join us for that.
I want to read fun comics. I don't want to read these.
Well, honestly, Geoff Johns does have if anything, he seems like he'll give like a fun kind of thing. And like I said, his Flash is supposed to be pretty good. So we'll see.
I think you may be
but
misled, but
yeah, all right, we'll see what happens. Then I prompt Chris will do a fun one after that if it sucks. And we'll never do DC again. Okay, we can't not do DC again. They're so important. But that's right. We'll do Bendis' DC. It'll be great. His Huntress story where she...
where she and Tim Drake quip each other. Yeah, it'll be great.
Yeah, quip each other all night long. All right, great. So yeah, I think we're done here. You guys got anything else to add?
No.
How's your other podcast doing, Chris? Your Stupid Minds. What are y'all talking about over there?
It's doing good. We're doing lesser Baldwin movies. So we've already done, I believe it's Desert Thunder with the fattest Baldwin. I'm trying to remember which one that is.
That's his name, Fattest Baldwin.
And then we did. We're doing something with Steven coming up.
Is it
And then we
Biodome?
did- No, it's not Biodome.
Oh.
And then we did. God, what did we do?
Fair Game.
Oh, we did Fair Game. Yes,
Yeah.
with Billy Baldwin to start the series. So,
Oh, boy.
which
Those
Vince
Baldwins.
has seen. I assume to see Cindy Crawford.
It was a formative experience for 13-year-old Vince.
Again. You freaking creep.
It's not that good. It's not even that good of a formative experience, unfortunately. But
She is hot in it. She's also really not good. So.
All right. So, yeah, go check that out. Watch some terrible movies and listen to Chris talk about them.
speaking of terrible movies, this is our last episode before the Justice League. Hot take.
Boy, I've been too negative this episode. Let's just end the show. All right. Thanks, everybody. Go enjoy the Justice League. It's gonna be a great movie. Bye, everybody. Have a good night.
If not, watch Thor.
Yeah, watch Thor instead. Bye.